Okay, so once you've got the GeoStar logo completed in Illustrator, it's time to load it into After Effects and start using it. So whenever you open After Effects, might be a good idea to go to Window, Workspace, and Reset Standard. And that way your windows are going to look the same as my windows. Once you do, you'll see the project panel over here in the upper left. Just double click inside this gray area to load a file, to import a file. So we're looking for the Illustrator file here. AI is the one, geostarlogo.ai. We'll load that in, and the first thing you see is a message here asking you what kind of import do you want to do here. Composition is the correct choice, so make sure you do not have footage chosen. And we'll go ahead and click OK. And then we get two little icons that come up over here in the project window. One of them is the layers of the file, and the other one is the comp icon, the composition icon, and we're just going to double click on that comp icon now, and that will open it in the timeline and show it to us over here in the comp window. Okay, the first thing I want you to do now is to go to composition settings, and you need to set your timeline to 7 seconds. Now mine is set to 7 seconds right now, but if yours is a shorter length, let me show you what's going to happen. I'm going to select all here. Yours, if your timeline, let's say, was set to 5 seconds, and you take your little zoom icon down here and go all the way back to the left, you're going to find that your layers are too short. They don't go all the way to the end. So in order to cure that problem, you're going to have to select all the layers. So you can click on one and click on Control or Command A for all, and then you can just drag the edge of the layers to get them to go the length of the timeline. Okay, looking good now. Let's get started. We're going to go ahead and make this circle look more like a sphere. And so what we're looking for over here is an effect called gradient, G-R-A-D-I-E-N-T. Actually, After Effects calls it a gradient ramp. And so we're going to either drag that right over the top of the planet itself, or we can put it on top of the planet layer down here. Either way is fine. Now the first thing that happens is it covers up our color, and we need that color. Well, let me point this out to you. Our project tab has now a new tab beside it called Effect Controls, and that's the one that pops up. As soon as you add an effect, it's going to show you the controls for that effect right here. Now we need to be able to see the color that we were using before, and so we need to disable the effect. And to do that, we're going to click this little effects icon, FX. We'll click on that, and now we can see the color. So what I'd like for you to do is to use the eyedropper here for the black color, or the one that's called Start Color, and just click on that eyedropper and drop it right over the top of the purple color and click, and that's going to set the start color to purple. The end color we need to set to black, so click on the color chip and just go all the way down to black. Now we can turn the effect back on, and we've got something that's, I don't know, it's kind of getting there, but it's not what we want. I want you to change linear ramp to radial ramp, and I want you to click on the little target icon up here next to the start of ramp, and we'll put that kind of in the upper left quadrant, and then we'll take the end of ramp little target icon and drop that over the kind of the bottom right, and there we get our planet. Now we can adjust these to whatever point makes sense to us there. I want to kind of make the bottom kind of go away so that we can sort of nest this text right down sort of almost on top of the planet. Now let's move forward, and the next thing we're going to do is animate the star. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to make the star follow sort of the rotation here of this orbit. Okay, so click on the star layer. You can click on it here or here, and I want you to notice now on two different versions of After Effects I've looked at, it's shown me this in two different ways. But I want you to look and see if you have this little target icon appear in the center of the star. If you do not, that's called the anchor point, by the way. If you do not see the anchor point in the middle of the star, you're going to have to go and get this little guy called the Pan Behind tool up here, and that will allow you to grab hold of the anchor point. Let's say it's out here somewhere. You can grab that anchor point and you can move it over the top of the star. I'm going to undo to get it back to that correct position, and I'm going to go ahead and select my selection tool again. Now we need to animate both the position and the scale for this layer, so I'm going to type P, which will show us position, but we also need to see scale. So I'm going to hold down the Shift key and press the S key on the keyboard, and that will show us both position and scale at the same time. So by holding Shift and pressing one of the other shortcut keys on the keyboard, we can reveal those animating properties. Alright, now I'm going to hold down the space bar, and I'm just going to move this over a little bit so that I can see this shape right here. Okay, let's now go to 3 seconds in the timeline. The easiest way to do that probably is just to click on the little timecode register up here and type in 300, 3 seconds and 00 frames. And let's go ahead now and click the stopwatch for both position and scale. This is the ending position of our animation. Now let's jump back to 2 seconds, 200, and we're going to move that star into its beginning position. So reach up here, grab that star, and bring it over into that location right there. And we'll also go ahead and scale this down to nothing. Whoops. Okay, set that to 0. And if we look at this now, if we look at this animation, well, it's just making a straight line for us. Well, that doesn't help us much. So what I need to do is to alter the trajectory or the motion path of the star. So in order to do so, we're going to go back and click on position again. I'm going to click on position here, and I want you to notice this. You see the motion path right here. It's a series of dots with a little line through it. Notice these other 2 dots right here. Those are the Bezier handles for a motion path. This is going to allow you to give your motion path a curve. So if we pull on those a little bit, we'll be able to set a curve. So what you need to do is to grab those and just start manipulating them until you kind of mimic that curve. It's not going to be perfect, I don't think. You kind of get pretty close, but it won't be, I don't think, perfect. That's pretty good, actually. It does look pretty close. Anyway, so now what you're going to see is that the star now follows that path right there. Okay? So let's go ahead now and jump to the 3-second mark, and in order to do so, yes, you could go type it in, but if you hold Shift and you drag the playhead or scrub the playhead, it will snap right to the 3-second mark. Okay? So next thing we're going to do is animate on this orbit, and we're going to do so with a wipe effect, in particular the radial wipe. So I'm going to click the X over here in Effects and Presets to reset my little search bar, and I'm going to type in radial wipe. And the one we want is under transition, radial wipe. Okay, I'm going to add radial wipe to the orbit layer down here. And while I'm there, I'm just going to go ahead and twirl up the star keyframes. And let me go back to my orbit layer here now. And since we added that wipe, we now have over here in Effect Controls the settings for this radial wipe. So what we want to do is set the transition to 100%. And you'll see when we do, yes, it's wiping off, but it's doing so in an odd way. It's actually rotating around this point right here. And really what we need is to try to find this sort of center of this imaginary circle that we have. So thinking that this is about half of our little circle, that's about where it needs to be, up in here somewhere. So we're going to take this wipe center, click on that, and just kind of guess, you know, right in there someplace. Looks pretty good. And now when we alter the transition completion, it looks like it's in more or less the correct position for us now. So let's go ahead and set the transition completion to 100%, and we'll set a keyframe for transition completion. And let's move to the 4-second point. So we can come over here and drag the playhead, or we can type in 400 over here, and let's change the transition completion back to 0. And you'll see that we have a nice little animation going on there. But just to make it a little bit more special, we'll add some feather. So we'll put 20 pixels of feather in there, and that'll give you just a little something as it comes on. So there's our animation so far. Look good? Okay. Let's go ahead and work on the type now. So I'm going to roll the mouse back here a little bit now, and again use my space bar to kind of reposition my text so I can see it. Maybe I'll roll the mouse back in so I can see it a little bit bigger. Although we're at 200% right now, which is going to make the text look a little fuzzy for us. Don't worry, it's not really fuzzy. We're just looking at a really magnified view. What I want to do here is to retype this text. Yes, I know we typed it in Illustrator and that's all great, but we really need to have editable text so that we can do all the things that we're going to do here in a second to animate the text. So let's go ahead and get some fonts and start retyping this text. Now, I found a couple of interesting little problems with this. I created the Illustrator file on a Mac, and I'm animating this on a PC. What I found was the PC version didn't have the same fonts on it. So I went ahead and hunted around on Adobe Typekit. Now, if you have Creative Cloud, you can go to Fonts here and you can load type from Adobe Typekit. It's real simple. There's some instructions. I'm not going to go over it now, but you can get hundreds and hundreds of fonts from Adobe free of charge, and Adobe fonts are really good. So anyway, I found a couple of fonts that I think are going to match reasonably well for this. I do have one called Gill Sans MT, and I'm going to go ahead and use that one. Let me go get my type tool, and I'm just going to start typing here. Geostar. There we go. And maybe just going to pull that down a little bit so we can see it. Maybe good enough for now. So let's go ahead and set the font to Gill Sans. Gill Sans MT, that's good. And the size is going to be 48. There we go. And so we're getting close now. I'm not going to reposition it just yet. But that MT is, to my eye, looks pretty much the same. But I don't have the light version of this font. So instead, I'm going to use a font that I got off of Typekit called Cordia. So I'm going to go ahead and type in here Media Works. And let me go ahead, I'm going to click on this where it says Text 1 so that I can set the type. And then I'll reset the settings for this. So Cordia. There it is, Cordia. Let's see what all my choices are. Cordia UPC, I think, is the right one. And we'll just play with the size here a little bit. That seems pretty close. Yeah, that's going to be good enough for us, I think. So I'm going to go ahead and position the type over the top. And by the way, if you need to set the color, it's right there for you. We'll get this type positioned reasonably close to where we had it. Now I'm going to go on and delete the old type layer. And I'll take these two layers of type and move them to the top here so that the type is the topmost thing. I think I'm going to take MediaWorks and maybe tuck it up under a little bit. And just to make sure things are aligned properly, I'm going to draw out some guides. So Control or Command R to reveal the rulers. Then I'm going to pull some guides out to see where the edges of the type is. I just need to make sure everything is all looking good here. So let's see, that MediaWorks looks like it could stand a little tweaking. Maybe 54. 54 is too small. So maybe we'll change the, oh yeah, let's go ahead and set this to optical for one thing. And yeah, we'll just track it out just a little bit so that we can get it out there on the edge, and that looks pretty good. Okay, all right. I think now I'm going to move the GeoStar layer up on top of the MediaWorks layer just so the order matches what we see up here. And now I want to add an effect, a little transition to this text. So I'm going to jump to the very beginning of the timeline, I think, here, and I'm going to select both layers. Now, we could add an effect to these using the animation presets over here, and if we go and twirl down, we'll find one called text, and inside text there's a whole bunch of choices. It's really hard to kind of figure out what's in there and what all those things do. But we've got a little shortcut right here to the right of effects and presets. We can choose Browse Presets. And this brings up Adobe Bridge for us. It takes a few seconds for it to load, but mine's already loaded, so we can move forward. I'm going to double click on this folder called Text, and I'm going to double click on this one called Blurs, and I want the one called Bullet Train. If I click on that, you can see a little animation of it over there. So I'm going to go ahead and double click on this effect, double click, and that's going to add it to our text layers in After Effects. Let's watch it work. Okay, that's what it looks like. Pretty cool. Now, it's happening in the wrong place. I need it to happen basically during this animation of the orbit layer, just pretty much when the orbit layer finishes, which is right around 321 or so. So I'm going to go ahead and press the U key to reveal the animation to us. And I have both of those layers selected, so when I press U, it shows me the keyframes for both of those. I'm going to grab them on one of the layers, drag a little box around them, and pull them down to that point. And I'll do the same over here. And I'm not sure about the timing of this yet, so let's see. Well, let's try it. I'll hit the 0 key to render it. Okay, I think I would like to pull the beginning keyframe back a few frames. Let's see how that looks. That's about right. And maybe I'll have these offset a little bit, so I'll have MediaWorks come in a few frames later. Alright, that seems okay to me. Okay, great. The last thing we're going to do is to create some sort of a background here. And so my thinking was that we would use some kind of star field. And so I'm going to roll the mouse back just a little bit so we can see a little bit more of the space that we're working with. And so let's go ahead and add a new solid layer. Layer, new, solid. We're going to name it Starfield. And we'll click the Make Comp Size button to make sure that our solid layer fills the entire space. And let's colorize it our yellow. We're going to make yellow stars. And I'll click OK. And that puts the layer on top. We need it on bottom. So let me go ahead and twirl the text layers up. And we'll take our star field and drag it to the bottom of the stack. Okay. Now, let's apply an effect. Here we want the one called CC Starburst. There it is. So we'll bring that onto, let's do it, be safe and put it down here. And there you see some stars. It's very big and obtrusive right now, but we're going to make some changes. So let's go over here to Effect Controls and change Scatter to 500. And we'll make the speed. Right now, we've got a Star Wars style thing going on here. I really want the speed to be 0. So we'll set the speed to 0. And the grid spacing to 5. And the size to 25. And what that does for us is just set us up with just relatively few stars. We don't need a whole bunch of stuff going on here. We just need a little bit, just subtle, something subtle. And that's it. That is the end of our animation. Now you may want this to fade out as well. And to create a fade out, here's what I recommend. I'm going to add one more layer. Layer, new, solid. We'll make this a black solid. So we'll go all the way down to the corner and we'll call it black. Good enough. Click OK. And so we'll take this black layer, bring it to the very top, right up here. There's the black layer. Now we need to go ahead and fade this out. So let's click T for transparency. And let's go to, I'm going to go to the end of the timeline and press the stopwatch. Then I'm going to come back to the 6-second mark and we'll make the opacity 0. And now what we have is a fade at the end. Very simple way to create a fade. Now you'll notice that the logo sits still for a couple of seconds before it goes away. And that's what I want you to do as well. Now the only other thing to do to this is to add music. Whenever you create your own logo, I expect you to have music in this file. So it should be something appropriate. And of course, again, you are not creating this. This is not your logo. This is just practice. So go away and do your own thing, create your own logo, animate it however you want. Good luck and have fun, and let me know if you need any help.